Who am I? I'm the greatest. Who am I? I'm getting paid. Who am I? I'm so flagrant. Who am I? I'm the greatest. Who am I? I'm getting paid. Who am I? I'm so flagrant.
What's going on, Virgo? This is Boss Roy here with your reading for the month of August. Welcome to my channel. Let's just get started with your reading. Virgo, when I tell you this is my second time doing your reading, I went into a whole coughing fit, knocked the cars over, just a whole mess. So let's get to it. Let's make sure that this is going to go right. We're not going to jinx everything. Lord have mercy. But it's all about what I pulled for you this week was from the Pocket Animal Spirit deck. Okay, I was diving into your energy. And the first thing I got for you was a bat in reverse. We got the dragonfly. We also have the swan. Okay, so this is all about communication, Virgo. Okay, and that's why I was having communication issues because it was like, what I tell you, I was like 5 minutes in, and I'm like telling you, all my desk was just like clear from cars and everything. I had to reorganize everything. But you're in a space right now, Virgo, where you're sort of like, downing yourself and your mindset when it comes down to being discerning with people in your environment. Okay, it could be in your workspace, it could be, like I said, personal relationships, like I said, it could be family dynamics, but you're in a space where you're sort of like second guessing yourself. Okay, and I believe that this is coming from a past type of energy, okay, that you experience. Okay, that bad in reverse, it can sometimes be nostalgic. So you're probably looking at past interactions, past jobs where you're like, okay, well, you know what? I wasn't really sure if I made the right decision. I wasn't really sure if I made the right call. So you utilize other people as a sounding board. Okay, you're breaking free of that. Okay, you're breaking free of that. You're breaking free from that communication where it puts people in that control seat because you're taking the control in your life, Virgo. Okay, you guys are really good at giving advice towards people. Okay, you're great as far as like listening and being effective as far as like knowing what's going on in your environment. But sometimes it could be a second guessing with you when it comes down to like your day to day. And it's nothing in a bad way. It's not like I said you're not being able to move and you're not being able to pivot from certain things. You just want to be extra cautious, okay? And that's that precaution that's having you sort of being kind of like stunted when it comes to your overall growth process and your next phase of life because you're no longer in this energy, okay? You're trying to embrace this swan energy and also this dragonfly energy, okay? And to go about that process, and Virgo, the people who are giving you this advice, good advice, they know how to embrace that emotional energy. Okay, that swan is all about having that emotional energy. They know how to look beyond that surface. Okay, so that could be a family member or friend that's giving you really good advice, and you're a little bit codependent on that person. Okay, you're a little bit codependent on that person to sort of pivot you into the right direction. You're able to do that yourself. Okay, and I think you're going about that journey in a successful way. It's going to take time, but to have that type of energy, Virgo, to have that type of thought process, you have to embrace that knowledge, of course, like I said, from that dragonfly energy, that embracing that communication, but also knowing what actually makes you feel good, what actually makes you have a sense of emotional security in the environment. Okay. So as you're going about, looking for jobs right now, if you're going to like different interviews and it doesn't feel right to you, that's for you to know because you experienced that. Okay. Okay, so getting on the phone and you're talking to someone and saying like, "Hey, you know what? I had an interview with so and so today. I wasn't really quite sure about it. How do you feel about it?" They're not going to have that emotional understanding because they weren't there. Okay, if you meet someone, you're dating them. Right now it's the beginning honeymoon phase, and you're trying to figure out how this person is, and you're calling. You're like, okay, well, you're giving that person the logical details, saying, "Hey, well, this person here, they're, this is how they operate. This is how they, this is how they, the character is." They're only hearing that logical perspective. They don't know that emotional side. Okay, this is for you to know and how to pivot as far as like successful decision making when you're able to embrace that emotions and see below the surface. Okay, all about the swan energy. You're seeing below the surface. Okay, you're seeing it has a deep knowledge of self. And Virgo, what you're learning in the month of August is having a deep knowledge of self to make effective decisions. Okay, you're no longer going to be put in a place where you're being codependent on someone else's thought process. Okay. And that's something that you probably were accustomed to in the past. Okay. You could have made some pitfalls when it came down to communication, when it came down to like, seeing people in your environment. You sort of went in head first. So a lot of things you went into it from a comfort zone type of perspective. But from that knowledge, you're able to go about it successfully where you're able to say, you know what, I learned from that. I'm going to take my time to go about, trusting my gut, trusting my intuition. And things about the swan energy is reflective. So like, it has a reflective energy. So it may be a time for you where you're going about journaling and writing down your thoughts and, seeing how you felt during that time period, reading it back, having that sense of knowledge, that dragonfly energy. Okay. Because you guys, like I said, you had that Mercury energy as well. So Mercury is all about like not only with communication, it's always a good thing to write and sort of like, getting your note sessions on your phone and say, hey, you know what, this is what happened today. This is journaling for your day. Okay. I went out with, Erica. I went out with Craig, during that interaction, that was said, you know what I'm saying? How did this make me feel? And you're discussing those feelings. Okay. And sometimes putting those feelings on paper, okay, or on, technology, put on your phone, has you come into a perspective where you have a deeper understanding. Okay. So it won't have you in a place where you're, like I said, you're grasping for that friend on the underline and you're grasping for that attention from, people in your environment. You're able to say, okay, you know what? I trust what I saw. Okay. I trust what's in my environment. I trust what's, actually happening to me because this is my personal experience. And I know when to say, okay, I know when to fold it and I know when to hold it. Okay. You guys are coming to that conclusion. Okay. You're coming into that conclusion where it's like, you're no longer being in a space where you're being pivoted from left to right without understanding what actually is taking place in your environment. Okay. And sometimes Virgos, you probably like I said, you left a lot of situations in an early phase because people didn't understand the emotional dynamic of the situation. When you're in the present situation and you're actually in that type of understanding, you're actually listening. That swan has a very listening, understanding ear. Okay. It's taking its time. It's slow to move. Okay. It's looking at that image. Okay. You guys are taking your time and you're slow to move when it comes down to like, people in your environment. That's like I said, that you're getting to know. And it's okay to be slow moving, Virgo, to gauge that, before going into that, Mercury perspective and being in that space where it's like, okay, you're going like in a fast type of mentality when it comes down to like, seeing people who are new in your environment, you sort of like, coming to a decision very quickly, or being apprehensive in that bad energy where it's like, okay, well, I'm not letting anybody in. Okay. You're learning how to merge things in a successful type of way. Okay. And that's something that's really imperative, especially moving forward in the month of August. And I'm glad you guys have that energy going forward. We're going to go to your fairy oracle deck here. So let's pull a few cards from here. Let's see. Taking the Sim. Got that. The Gotcha card. And we have, let's see, the fairy who was kissed by the pixies. Let's go. And I'll pull one more. The journeyman. All right. Good. So let's get started. We got Tatum the Sim. Okay, so that's that Mercury energy. Okay, you're communicating. Okay, and you're able to communicate effectively to be aware of this. Okay, so you're in your communication process, Virgo. You're gonna catch a lot of people up. Okay, because guess what? You got your card. Okay, so like I said, you can trust your communication. You can trust your knowledge. You can trust your energy being in that swan type energy as well, because it's gonna show you who's not meant for you. Okay. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to have that fear, okay? Because once, like I said, this sim is looking at this gotcha card. It's like they know what's going on. Let me get this in focus. They know what's going on, okay? It's illuminating all the toxic traits that they're seeing, okay, in the environment. So if you're going to a job environment and you're seeing that, okay, cool, the employee dynamic is horrible, okay? You're seeing that, okay? You're trusting your insight and you're able to say, you know what, I'm walking away from it. If you see someone that you're dating in a get to know you phase right now, they're showing you horrible situations or horrible characters, you got them. Okay. You're able to identify it. You're illuminating that light to say, okay, you don't know what, this is a horrible situation. Let me move away from it. Okay. You see toxic family coming in your direction, okay, in the month of August, and you're seeing that they're not bringing you any type of favor your way. You're illuminating that toxic behavior, and you're saying, okay, you know what, I'm able to walk away from it effectively. Okay. You're going to have massive favor, okay, with this new knowledge, okay? There's who was kissed by the pixies, okay? Happiness. You're going to have happiness. You're going to also have happiness from, trusting your gut, Virgo. That's a big thing. You're going to have happiness from trusting your gut. You're going to have happiness from getting that key understanding because, like I said, you guys, you came from a past where it was affecting you, okay? Last go broken wings, okay? You guys could have experienced toxic work environments. You guys could have experienced toxic friendships. You're no longer in that same type of space, okay? You no longer had that upside down bad energy, okay? You learn from that situation. You're able to pivot from that situation, okay? And like I said, from that, you're able to go into your new journey, okay? The journeyman. You're on your new direction. You're on your new pathway, okay? And that pathway is going to be happiness, okay, and understanding. You see how many people this fairy is communicating with? Let me get close. Okay, they're not intimidated by the communication. They're, like I said, they're being illuminated here. You see that illumination in both cards? And they're smiling because it's like they know what's going on. Okay, like I said, that dragonfly and that swan energy, you're like, I know what's going on. You can't get one on me, okay? You cannot get one on me. You don't have the gotcha type of energy, okay? This is gone, Virgo, okay? You're going to run into toxic people. That's life. You're going to see crazy people. That's life. But it's good for you to understand and trust your own judgment. That's a key thing, okay? Before you guys leave, I want to go into the tarot deck quickly just to get some more clarity. Let's pull a few cards here. The Star card, okay? Emperor. Okay, we're going to leave it like that. Okay, Virgo, you're good. You're good. This is going to give you what you need. You're going to have that emperor energy. You're the star in this, okay? Having that understanding and not being dependent on other people in your environment to make your judgment calls, or just to have that codependency energy with saying, okay, and I'm moving in the right direction. You will move in the right direction, okay? Okay, embrace that air and water energy. To make successful decisions, you're going to have your emotions online too, okay? Let's see, let me get this upright. That's what it was. You're gonna have your emotional, you're gonna have your emotions online as well with the logic. Okay, life is not all about logic, Virgo. You got to use both, and with that, when you're able to use both, you will be the emperor and the star in the situation. All right, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the August reading. Looking forward to talking with you soon. Have a great day.
Who am I? I'm the greatest. Who am I? I'm getting paid. Who am I? I'm so flagrant. Who am I? I'm the greatest. Who am I? I'm getting paid. Who am I? I'm so flagrant.